Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to a special Rams Review podcast preview show. And we're joined by the Potters Pundit's very own Mr. Sam Harrison, who's going to talk to us all about Stoke City and a certain rather important match that we both have on Saturday, 12:30 at Pride Park. So, Sam, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. And well, we a lot of people did say Stoke Derby, final game of the season. Could it be going down to the wire? And it's typical Championship that it is.
It is, and to be fair, at this neck of the woods, all 30 miles down from you, we felt the same. We felt that sort of if we were going to stand a chance of survival, this game would probably be the final throw of the dice. And lo and behold, so it has. But we brought you on to obviously talk about the team that we're playing against on Saturday, Stoke City. Briefly, a season of ups and downs and managerial roundabouts again as Stoke City do what Stoke City do. I think that's 8 managers in 4 years, I believe, or possibly even 3 years. What's happening there? A club that's renowned for being one of the richest in the Championship. You
Mm.
have a very rich owner, a very rich sponsor, a great stadium, a good fan base, but for some reason, Stoke City don't seem to want to progress.
No, yeah. It's. I mean, this season has been what it has been is 7 seasons. The seventh season now in the Championship, where it's a bottom half finish. Stoke have never looked at the playoffs or been up there, and this season especially, like you said, 3 managers. In a way, we've got the right one now. Someone in Mark Robbins that we can keep the faith in. But yeah, it's such a kind of Stoke thing to do that we had a season where we had Stephen Schumacher, and obviously we ended last season looking positive, looking quite positive. We had pre-season, then started the season. Um, Tops into ups and downs, but you get that opening start to the season, and then he just early on he gets sacked, and it was just like, whoa. It was more of a, don't get me wrong, there's decisions that you're not sure on, but why are we making that decision? And I think that's cost us this season. That's the big thing. But yeah, it's just it's chaos. It's absolute chaos. Don't get me wrong. One of the guys in charge, John Walters, he's made the decision to sack Schumacher and bring in Palach, and Palach was always a risk, Narcissus Palach, and it didn't work. And now we got Mark Robbins, but you, it, it's always a difficult one with him being a club legend. You want him to do well. You want him to make the right decisions, but I think he'll be able to admit he's made a number of mistakes this season, and I think that at the end of the day has cost us.
It's an interesting one. Is he the director of football?
Yeah,
Or what
yeah,
was his
sporting
role?
director.
You
Yeah.
see, I find that title interesting because we don't actually have one at Derby.
Mm.
We have a slightly different direction regarding how we see things at the back room level. And I think when it comes to director of football, when you look at John Walters, and yes, he's got a great history with Stoke, but I think with the director of football, you need history, you need experience,
Mm.
and I imagine that John Walters is still in his mid to late 40s, if I remember
Yeah.
rightly. He was playing when I were watching, so he can't be that old. And I look at the past, and I look at the likes of Alex Neil. He's with you just under 14 months. He's doing wonders. He's at Millwall, I believe now,
Yeah, yeah.
and doing great things. And Alex Neil teams, Preston are suffering without him. Stoke are suffering without him. And then obviously you signed Schumacher, and then Pelas, who I believe was in the Spanish fourth division, third division, fourth division.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he was obviously the big thing with Palach was he was the assistant under Corberan, and you look at it, he's managed. Well, no, sorry, been in the coaching staff for other clubs in England, but never taken that head coach role. And it was always going to be not taking anything against him, but it was always going to be a risk. It was
Mm.
always going to be he's either influenced the Stoke team and we play wonders, or just never clicks. And unfortunately for us, it just never clicked at all.
So Mark Robbins, he's been with you since January. Obviously, he had a great tenure stint at Coventry, and Yeah, he's one of them nearly men, as we'll call them, who did incredibly well with a very limited squad. And I
Mm.
still think he left Coventry in a good place. And Derby County seems to be one of those teams that get managers sacked. And Mark Robbins' last game, indeed, for Coventry was a defeat by Derby at their place. In fact, we did the double over Coventry, so I'm surprised we didn't get Lampard sacked either. Um, he struggled. He had that surge that got you toward the mid-table, and everyone
Mm.
thought, okay, we can push on here. Is he going to do what he did with Coventry? But it then quickly flatlined and is now trajectory sort of up, down, and a bit more down. Where's it going
Yeah.
wrong?
I, I think it's a tough one. I think if you ask majority of Stoke fans, he's the man to stabilise the club. I think this season has been an absolute key one to saying what is the long term plan. Schumacher going. What was the long term plan? Why was he sacked so soon? What did he go against that got him the sack? So I think Mark Robbins is the man to bring in who he wants. And I think that's what's kind of happened. What we've seen is January when he was here didn't really get to bring in anyone. He had Louis Baker and Nathan Lowe get recalled, and then we made two loan signings. He never really has brought in his players. And I think what we've seen is that there's a number of players under Mark Robbins that just aren't going to be here next season, aren't suiting the style. And I think that's what we've lacked. The, we've got quality, but have we seen it enough? Have we got that? Has he got that rotation to bring in? Has he got that kind of overall quality? But yeah, I think it's so tough because there's so many times where Stoke have been consistent and then like we mentioned about just being inconsistent. And you look at the last two games, yes, we played Leeds and Sheffield United, but you look at the Leeds game, yes, we got beat 6-0, but the start of that, they didn't have to leave second or third gear. We were it was our mistakes, and that's the frustration, sorry, is it's not on Mark Robbins really, it's more the players stepping up. And I think that's one of the things that there's too many players at the moment that have got quality that are just unable to show it week in and week out and kind of give us that oomph in terms of how we play. And I think that's what we've been missing in terms of in them kind of games where we just haven't got any points.
You see, it's interesting. I've been listening to a lot of Championship podcasts today prior to this recording to get an understanding what they feel about Stoke. And
Mm,
sort of the common denominator that's gone across all the platforms is that Stoke do have the quality, but it's easily nullified. And once it's nullified and worked out, they don't really have anything else. And I imagine that's probably two or three players in particular who need space on the ball or time on the ball.
mhm,
And they were saying this reflected on the results that you had. You had a bit of a resurgence prior to the Leeds and Sheffield United game where you obviously beat Sheff Wednesday, drew with Preston, drew
mm,
with Luton, beat QPR. Looking at it here, you beat Blackburn before they went on a surge.
mm,
So you've got it in you. Do you think that the Coventry game perhaps kicked the stuffing out of you though? I remember that game, if I remember
mm.
rightly, you got it back to 2-2 and then they
Yeah,
scored in like the 93rd minute and it seemed to really take the wind out of your sails.
yeah. I mean, I was at that game. I was lucky enough to go on an away day, and it was such a I don't know. You just got that feeling we were going to get something out of the game. And obviously, we went 2-0 down. But we've got players like your Ben Pearson, your Wouterberger, who technically Wouterberger's a superb player. But you look at Ben Pearson, he's someone that's just going to work hard. He's going to absolutely get in your face. He's going to work. He's a workhorse. And I think what Stoke have needed is players that are just going to. I know it's the bare minimum, but that fight, that desire, and that gets you points in the championship at the end of the day. Sometimes you don't need that talent. You can have that, sorry, but having that quality, but also that hard work to actually get in there. And I think in the Coventry game, it was one where we fought back 2-2, fantastic, work hard. All we needed to do was see out the game. And I think far too many times this season we've seen just mistakes or a lapse in judgment or just stuff like that, where like that game where we could have got a point away from home against a very strong Coventry side, we then lose it at the end. And I think that's the story of the season. We've had the Luton one at home. They equalise at our place to make it 1-1. Far too many times we've just defensively either switched off or it kind of, I don't know if the phrase is architects of your own downfall, but it's felt like that. And I don't like saying that because I don't like saying, oh well, it's the players' fault. But at times you're just looking at it and you're going, why don't we just hang on?
Mm.
And I think, yeah, like you said, that Coventry game, it was all big and getting back into it and a great away following 2-2. Let's go on and win this. And then all of a sudden, it's a kick in the knackers and it's just kind of gone. We've never really hit a constant or a consistent amount of
Mm.
performances. And I think that's kind of why it's going to the final day.
Yeah, and as most people know by now, you've scraped the big 5-0, which everyone thought that 50 would be
Mm,
the sort of target required. And I think, to be fair, and we'll come on to the other four teams, or the three teams, sorry, that are in the equation.
mm,
But I'm looking at your squad, and I'm going through it now on the other screen, and there is names in there that a lot of people will know, but there's also, dare I say it, a very strange blend of players. Like there's a lot of experience there,
mm,
and then a lot of you. There doesn't seem to be many players in their prime years, and that's
mm.
something that Derby struggle with as well. What would you agree with that, or would you say that this is a case of having a squad that's been signed by 4 or 5 different managers over 2 years, and no one's really brought their own identity on your team?
Yeah, I think that's what been one of the issues when you've got three separate people in charge. It's always going to be a tough season. I think Mark Robbins has been assessing his squad, and I think we've seen that in terms of players where we've had quite a number of injuries. Every team has injuries, so you can't blame that. But I think at the time when he came in, you look at it now, that was never his best 11. But I think it is one like you said, where that blend, it's tough. I think there's a couple or a number of players that you look at it and you just say, I know that like you look at the Sunderland and where they are fourth in the league, the youngsters and improving and trusting in the youth, and I completely think that's a great idea because Stoke's best players are Wouter Berger, Millie Manouf, Bae Jun Ho, and obviously and Ashley Phillips, and they're all youngsters as well as Victor Johansson. They've been absolutely fantastic, but I just think we haven't had enough experience, that championship football where you've got the likes of Ben Pearson that's just going to do the not the difficult bit, but the bit that goes, you know what, right, that's what we need, and gets the crowd going. And I think that's what Stoke have needed. And I just think it has been one where we haven't had enough quality. I think we know our best 11, and I think when they aren't performing consistently, when you're looking at the bench, have we got enough quality to maintain some form? I just don't think we have. So yeah, I think I completely agree. I think it is just one where next season, if we can stay up, I feel like Mark Robbins is going to find that correct blend. But I think this season we've because of what's happened players wise, it's just been a constant rejig around and nothing really has come together as slickly as the managers would have liked.
Just an interesting player that I've just noticed that and I forgot he'd loaned in is Al Hamady.
Mm,
And I know that Derby were heavily linked with him twice, actually, at the start of the season for a season. I know Paul Warren was very interested. And then there were strong rumours that we tried to get him prior to yourselves, but you sort of gave him a wage that we couldn't compete with. He hasn't really set the place on fire, though, has he? It's been a very disappointing loan.
it's been a tough one. I think the numbers wise, he hasn't been able to when you bring in a striker, and especially coming off the back of Tom Cannon, who was in what was a very difficult time, was getting us the goals and inevitably has kept us in and alive to actually stay up. Al Hamidi was always going to be looked for the goals, but there's been performances that he's been solid. I think his hold up play, his being a nuisance, his ability to just have an impact in connecting the wingers and just trying to get involved in the overall play. But what I would say is he got injured during the international break, and he's come back and he's never really been able to find that impact. And I think that you look at the goals he scored, he's always in the right place at the right time. The one against Blackburn where we won 1-0, right at the back post, exactly where he needs to be. In a way, not a poacher's goal, but a very clever striker's goal. And I think it's just been one where it's kind of just come out now in terms of the performance levels. And whether that's being injury, it could be that he's still finding that impact. But yeah, I think with Al Hamadi, I like him. I must admit, I do like him. And if he was to sign for Stoke next season, I'd be looking at it and say, I think Mark Robins would like more from him. But has he shown signs? I'd say so. But could we see a lot more of him? I do think so. I think it's been a bit of a mixed one for him in terms of his loan spell at Stoke.
I think Ipswich going down might cause
Mm.
you a problem with that.
Yeah,
I think with
yeah,
them getting rid of Delap, and apparently Man U are pretty stone
yeah.
favourites along with Chelsea to get him. I think Al Hamadi has proven that he can compete in the Championship.
Mm.
And I think you may find that Ipswich may look at this
Yeah.
as a cheap option to bank some. But who knows? Who knows? Who else would you say that died off? Sam Gallagher, Derby.
Mm.
No, he must be about 60 years old now. He's still looking at his picture. He still looks good. Um, who else do Derby need to worry about? Because you're not
Mm.
prolific,
No,
and that's one thing that we are confident about. That we
yeah.
have, in our opinion, certainly in the last 10 games, the best defence in the league, bar Burnley. So,
Mm.
who's going to frighten us?
I think with Stoke, like I said, you know, when players are on their day and they've got that quality in the locker, Millie Manu, who plays on the right, is an absolute terror. He's on his day when he's given the space or you allow him to cut in on his left and either rolls the ball with his foot and lets one rip. It's absolutely superb, but it unfortunately it's not been one where we've seen them consistency of performances. A couple of times, well, a number of times, sorry, he's just kind of lacked that involvement that Mark Robbins would have liked. But he's one of them where you wouldn't drop him. You know what he's got in his locker. Can he provide it in this game? Hopefully so. But yeah, I think he's one on the right, and I'm going to mention Badron Ho as well. On the left, I've got a feeling them two are going to start. And Badron Ho, he's a different kind of winger, both inverted wingers that we've got, but
Yeah.
his footwork, his technical ability, he's just one of them where I think Derby fans will watch him, and if he can, they don't kind of press him too much, and if they don't work the press well, John Ho on the ball is so good, and that's just another one that's frustrating with him is that we haven't seen it enough, but there's a lot of quality there with him. So wingers wise, I think that's where hopefully we, as a Stoke fan, we get our joy, but it could be another one where the fullbacks win their battles, and unfortunately for us, we don't see that magic on offer.
Yeah, between the two of them, I've just looked here. They've got 10 goals and 10 assists. Manhuff's an interesting one. Like I said, he plays inverted, and all
Mm,
7 goals he's scored have been inside the box, and all from his left foot.
yeah,
I must admit, your website's really good. It gives you lots of stats and
yeah.
percentages. So I'm very impressed. So let's reverse it. Let's put the team that's facing you cap on Derby County.
Mm,
What have you made of them this year? And obviously, a former Stoke stalwart is now in charge of
mm.
us, and obviously a very good player in his day at Stoke, Coventry, Derby. How do you see Derby season as an outsider looking in?
I must admit, I think the when Eustace got announced, I thought, and following the kind of rocky start, I think that's fair to say, bit of a rocky start. I thought, you know what, it's just not going to go their way. You're not going to pick up the points, and that's what I just because I thought, you know what, it's just not going to click, and it's going to be such a shame. But I just got that feeling this season with Derby that they weren't going to have enough. And that's not me taking it because I think there's a number of Derby players that could easily get in the Stoke side, but would be knocking on the door kind of thing. And I think that when Stoke played Derby in the 2-1 win at home. I thought Ibu Adams had a bit of a difficult game in the midfield. I just thought, oh, he's losing his battles. He's not having too great of a game. But I've watched him a number of times now. He's getting on the score sheet as well, and he's just one of them where I think a number of players for Derby now have stepped up big time. And you mentioned about that back line. Well, I say back three, and with your wing backs, I just think they've stepped up, and I think Eustace, like we've seen with a number of teams, has managed to get the best out of his players. And I was quite interested to see that how Jerry Yates has got 10 goals, and I haven't really seen much of Jerry Yates, but as someone that I quite think, oh, he's a decent player, and I think getting to double digits for a team that are down there, I think that is it one of them where it shouldn't be on him to get the goals. It should be other players, and that was something that definitely intrigued me. I don't know what you think in terms of is it that he should be scoring more, or that there's other players on that pitch that need to be getting involved more.
Well, he needs to play as a two. He's a
Mm,
number 10 fundamentally. He's not a nine, never has
got you.
been. And Warren played him on his own. He
Mm,
played a four, but fundamentally, he was tinkering, but it always ended up being a 4-5-1 or a 4-3, whatever. People never knew what Paul Warren was doing, to be
mm,
completely honest. And we found out his level quite quickly, as you saw in the championship, and you saw them firsthand. I think where Eustace has changed Yates's game is that he's put Marcus Harness up top with him
mm,
and plays as a two. So you got fundamentally a 3-5-2. Um, but we were very astute by selling our best young player, Aaron Cashin,
mm,
for £9 million is the belief figure, and we bought Eustace and his backroom staff in from Blackburn with some of that money. They wanted 500 grand plus some change for the backroom staff, and we've got a former Stoke goalkeeper coaching
mm.
and Stephen Clements who is being raved about. He's changed our number one
Yeah.
with Zetterstrom. He's just changed his distribution, his confidence. It's a big difference. But I think the big change in Derby from when they played Stoke is the fact that we've got three colossus centre halves. Nat
Mm,
Phillips, who everyone knows about. You probably saw the goal against Hull.
yeah.
You won't get a
Mm,
better set piece goal all season, and I don't care what
yeah.
people say. It's perfect. You've got Matthew Clark, who is a stalwart of the Championship, who is easily one of the best defenders in the modern era for this league when he's fit, and touch what he has been. And then we've got a young lad from Norway called Sondre Langas,
Mm,
who at the moment he's playing with a meniscus injury, so he's playing fundamentally on one leg. But
mm,
he's 24 years old. He's a Norwegian international. He's 6'4". You'll see him. He's a huge lad. Um, and then you've got the rejuvenated new batteries, Craig Forsyth, who's been around for 13 years at Derby and played against Stoke many times. You know what you get with Fozzie. So I think what Eustace has done is brought John Eustace football, his
mm,
style as a player. And we all, you remember him, Sam, as a player at Stoke, at Derby,
mm,
at Coventry. He was no frills. You know, in some ways, pardon the French, he was a bastard. He was there to do the dirty stuff, and if it meant taking a yellow to stop a guaranteed chance, then he would, and vice
mm,
versa. And he's done that with Derby. The team that you saw at Stoke was chaos, was organised chaos. There
mm.
was no real structure. It was
Yeah.
a diagonal ball, 60 yards from cash in over the top, and hopefully would get a set play from it and would score. Poor Wall
Yeah.
football is atrocious, and I was never a fan of Warren. He lost the fan base very, very quickly. In fact, he lost the fan base, in my opinion, when we got promotion, and that sounds really daft to see, but the
Mm,
football was shite, and
mm,
we now got a belief that the structure there that we've got the same problem as you, Sam, whereas we've got a squad that's got little bits of quality here and there, little snippets, but fundamentally needs a complete overhaul. We've got 13
mm.
players out of contract or on loan at the end of the season. I think Stoke have got a similar number.
Yeah.
And both teams are at this horrible situation where they've got to play each other at the end of the season.
Mm,
And here's my next question to you. Do you think that the Stoke fans will be nervous at Pride Park? Do you think that they'll be having their radios on and because let me say the 4G at Pride Park is shit. So if you're looking to get a signal and you're all on Vodafone, you're in trouble. Other good mobiles are available. It's a nightmare when to get a signal. But
Yeah,
do you think that it's going to be one of those games that everyone is reliant on one of the other three, which we'll come to shortly,
yeah.
either getting beat or scoring?
I think so, yeah. If I'm being honest, I think a lot of Stoke fans, after the Sheffield Wednesday win, we were going, you know what, we're gonna stay up. Um, you can't really see the likes of you guys or Luton or Hull getting points, and now all of a sudden we've hit the 50 mark, and we're looking at this going, we could still go down. And I think after the Leeds and Sheffield United performance, I think especially the Sheffield United performance, it's just one of them where why we're relying on other teams' results. And I think it being away from home at Derby, where we haven't won in quite a number of games, it's just a tough one. And I think, yeah, I think there will be. I'm personally a little bit nervous. I think there's a little bit of comfort because we're on 50 points. Hull have to win. Um, we're not fully out of it if we draw. We've still got if both Stoke and Derby share the points and results go our way, that could be enough. And I've just got that feeling, and I think a lot of Stoke fans will as well. We're just going to scrape it, and it's a shame. It is a shame because it's one of them where it's like, why are we just scraping out of the Championship on our seventh season where we've not even been able to have a glimmer of hope for the playoffs? But yeah, I think Stoke are taking a great away following. The away fans are absolutely magnificent and will be in full voice. It's just one of them. Will the players be able to replicate that? And if it was at home, I was going, you know what? We'll be able to get something out of it. Away, I'm a little bit like I've just got that feeling it could be a Derby win, and we just scrape it with a bit of luck. And the likes of say Hull or Preston possibly drop points, and that's how we do it. That's me personally. That's how I feel. It's just gonna go, which is a shame. I'd love for us to go to your place and have a great game, but based off recent form, I don't know. I just don't see it happening. I'm afraid.
Well, we've both got similar form. I'm looking at the table now, and it's staggering. Actually, we've scored more goals than you and conceded less. Now, if we would
Yeah.
have said that in January when we had Paul Ward in charge, we couldn't
Mm,
buy a goal, and we were giving 2 goals a game away for free.
yeah.
So I find seeing actually your minus 17 goal difference is staggering.
Mm,
We have -8, as you know, which is the best in the bottom 11
yeah.
actually. So let's look at the other teams before we sort of wrap up with the score prediction.
Mm,
I think Preston and Hull have got the two worst away games they could have this weekend, personally.
yeah.
Bristol City, who are, I think, the second best home record in the league or third,
Mm, mm,
need a win to get in the playoffs. Preston have got to travel there on 4 defeats on the trot, one win in 14. And
yeah.
then Hull, I've got to go to Portsmouth, Fratton Park, which is
Mm,
again one of the fortresses of the league and
yeah.
has kept Portsmouth in the league. How do you see those games going? And I don't include Luton because I think Luton and West Brom has got 0-0 written all over it, and I think
Yeah.
Luton is in the laps of the gods of the other two. So, or do you have something different in mind?
I think, like I said about Stoke being away from home, I think that home crowd for you guys, I think that's going to be a difference maker. I think that's got a 1-0 possibly written all over it, possibly even a 2-1. And I think that's going to be an advantage. I think Bristol City at home is, I think that's just, I'll be nothing against Hull, not Hull, sorry, Preston. I can't see them coming away from that with a point at all. I think Bristol City are going to be absolutely up for it. I think we've seen a number of times when Bristol City are at home, they've just got that fire, that power, and I can't see them losing. I think that could be a 2-3-0, I'm afraid. And nothing against Preston, they've got quality, but I can't see an away victory there. And I think Hull, um, going away as well. I think both of them, it being away games, just looking at it and saying, will they turn up? Will they have that fire in the belly that a home crowd can produce? I just don't see it. I think especially Bristol City at home, away from home, sorry. It's very tough to get a result, especially when they're chasing for something like like you said with the West Brom Luton game. Luton could win that. They could win 2-3, 2-3, no, 1-2-0. I just think because West Brom aren't fighting for anything but Bristol City, and Portsmouth as well, who've got a very good home record. It's one of them where if you were to pick out home away games to go to, the likes of Bristol City, the likes of Portsmouth and your Leeds, that's not who you want on the final day. So yeah, I think them two away from home, it's difficult. I don't know what you think, but I just feel home advantage on the final day of the season. I think that could be absolutely huge.
No, I agree. I agree. I think Portsmouth will celebrate with a convincing win. I
Mm,
think that they are a team that came up with us, remember. So they've survived and survived well.
mm,
And they stuck with their manager, Messino, when they went through a dodgy patch
mm.
mid-season. And fair play to him. I remember him when I was at Burton. He was a good player and he's a very good coach. So
Mm,
I see the task ahead for Hull there. And seeing what I saw with Hull at the weekend, they've not got a lot. They don't concede
yeah,
many goals, but they've got nothing. And their main January signings are both injured, so they've got nothing.
yeah,
Regarding Preston, I think they're in deep trouble.
yeah.
I think they're four defeats on the bounce, and to go to a team like Bristol City, who have got such an importance on the game, and also they've got their captain, who's a former Derby County favourite boy, Jason Knight, and Max
Mm,
Bird, who's fully fit now. They've got an extra impetus to help
yeah,
their beloved club because they both love Derby. They both come back to Derby on a regular basis, and they made their name here. So I think we gave them the grace of going to at the time, a bigger and better thing from League One.
mm,
I think you'll see those two step up for Bristol City at the weekend and get the job done, which is good
yeah.
for both of us, Stan, because ultimately we can then play the most boring, obvious 0-0. I think someone mentioned on a previous podcast, I think it was in on Radio Derby, about the 1982 Austria versus West Germany game in the World Cup. And for anyone who wants to know about that, please go on Wikipedia. But basically, two teams just needed a point each to get into the last 32. So they
Mm,
pretty much shook hands and played a very strange, obvious 0-0. Um, so I'm going to go to your score prediction, Sam. Now we've just gone through the permutations. First of all, before the score, who's going down with Plymouth and Cardiff? And there's no point talking about Plymouth about mathematical.
yeah,
They're gone. They're finished. They've had it.
yeah.
Who's joining them?
You know what? I've not thought about score predictions, and I've not thought about who's going down. And I think talking about it now, as much as I don't know, there's something about Preston that I don't dislike them, but I don't like them. I'm not but them going down, I'm like, that doesn't sit right with me. But neither does Hull. So I don't know. It's not going to be us two. If I've jinxed us, gladly, like I'll stop waffling about Stoke. But um, I'm going to go for Hull. And it's a shame because I think Hull have got a couple of decent players, and it's not nice to see how they've kind of the trajectory of what's happened at them and the Liam Rosenior and the football they were playing and then what's happened now. But yeah, I've just got a feeling it's going to be Hull, and I don't know if that's more because I think Preston might. I think right now, as far as I'm aware, Hull are the ones in
The bottom three.
that final. Yeah, in that final thing, and I think
Yeah.
goal difference,
They've got
as
to
we
win.
mentioned, I
They've
think
got
that
to win.
I
Yeah.
think that's the difference maker. I think that's possibly the pressure of that and not being at home. I think that could be the difference maker.
Yeah, I think the Hull's only saving grace is if they draw, they then
Mm.
got obviously got to rely on Preston losing heavily.
got you.
and then they'll be on the same points. But Preston's goal difference is -11 and Hull's is -10. So, so if Hull get a 0-0 and Preston lose
Yeah,
2-0, Preston will go down by one goal.
yeah,
I think Luton will get a point. I'm not gonna.
yeah.
I want Luton to survive because I think they deserve it. I think they've mismanaged terribly, and their priorities have been building the new stadium.
Mm,
And I think I can see why they've sort of got distracted somewhat. And then I
yeah.
look at the teams coming up from the League One, which is Wrexham and Birmingham. It's going to be even really strong league next year with them two in there.
Mm,
So I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go with Preston because I think I've got a feeling that Hull are going to scrape a draw and Preston are going to get tonked. I think Hull are
yeah,
going to get something like a because Portsmouth play in such a strange way of gun ho football. I can see it being a 3-3 against Hull, something crazy.
yeah,
And then pressing and thump 3-0 and or losing 2-0. Can you imagine if they lost?
yeah,
They conceded a second goal in the 93rd minute. Wow.
yeah.
So I'm going Preston. Sam's going to go Hull being relegated. And finally, in the last 2 minutes, it's been great talking to you, Sam. What's the score going to be Saturday?
I'm gonna go 1-1.
Yep.
I don't want to go against my boys, purely because I just don't like saying that Stoke are gonna lose. But yeah, I'm gonna go points are shared. I think it's gonna be a feisty affair. I think it's gonna be a good one, and I think the points shared, nice and fair, and we both stay up. I don't know about you, but I can't see a Stoke win. It's either a draw or a derby win, I think.
I think the pitch will play a big part in the game. I think it's cost us dearly the beach that we have. I'm going to go for a Derby 1-0 win, but I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if it's 0-0. I think the game will pan out depending on all the scores, and I don't care what managers say about they don't listen to all the scores. That's
Mm.
absolute poppycock. I think if they hear that teams are if it's 0-0 at Pride Park and teams
Yeah.
in the bottom three are getting tanked or are in trouble, I think that the game will simmer out. So finally, Sam, it's been brilliant from the Potters pundits. Where can Derby fans follow you and Stoke fans for future reference and socials?
So YouTube and TikTok, Potter's Pundits. It's a load of waffle most of the time. I get my predictions wrong, whether that be starting 11 or score predictions. But yeah, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram as well. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on, by the way.
No problem. So that's Sam Harrison for the Potters Pundits. I'm Chris Holt from the Rams Review podcast. We're both predicting that Derby and Stoke stay up. I'm happy with that. I don't care about the scores. I'm going to both do because it's the A50 Derby. We both
Mm.
love it. Sam, all the best, mate.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
And for you guys out there, up the Rams.